Mexico, the golden cradle of boxing, has given us, since the dawn of time, true warriors of the ring. One after another, they have served to reaffirm the power of Aztec blood. But even though they are relentless in combat, they have often faced disparagement, which is the best weapon many of their opponents wield against them. However, as boxing is a gentleman's art, when someone decides to act like a dirty fighter, there are consequences to be paid. And once in the ring, karma is never slow to arrive. Welcome! In today's video, I invite you to witness one of the most memorable encounters of Marco Antonio Barrera, the night he destroyed Kennedy McKinney. Get comfortable, because this new journey through the golden pages of boxing history starts here. Content: Marco Antonio Barrera and Kennedy McKinney were not strangers before facing off in a professional boxing ring. Both fought in the first broadcast of HBO's Boxing After Dark series. Boxing After Dark was a television boxing series that premiered in 1996. It typically featured fights between rising prospects, top contenders, and occasionally title bouts. At that time, both fighters were highly praised. Barrera was an undefeated champion under the World Boxing Council, ranked on most pound-for-pound lists, with an incredible record of 39-0. In the minds of many, Barrera was expected to rise as the next Mexican superstar, following in the footsteps of Julio Cesar Chavez, the Caesar of boxing. Meanwhile, Kennedy McKinney, an Olympic gold medalist and former IBF super bantamweight champion, had also earned some impressive credentials. Before the fight, it was known that there was a bit of rivalry between the fighters. At a press conference, McKinney lashed out at Barrera and promised victory. In response, Barrera struck him, and a near brawl broke out as both camps had to separate the fighters. With this build-up, the upcoming bout was bound to be anything but ordinary. The fight. The fight took place on February 3, 1996, at the Great Western Forum in Inglewood, California. It was Barrera's fifth defense of his WBO Super Bantamweight World title. The judges for the match were Lou Flippo, Robert Byrd, and Ismael Huiso Fernandez. McKinney entered the ring as the challenger with a professional record of 28 wins, 17 of them by knockout, alongside only one loss and one draw. During his introduction, some boos could be heard. Barrera, with 6 years of experience and 39 professional fights, boasted a perfect record of 39 wins, with 27 by knockout. The Mexican fighter was introduced as considered by many to be one of the best in the world, and upon hearing his name, the crowd went wild. With Pat Russell as the third man in the ring, the fight began. Round 1, Kennedy tried to keep Barrera at bay by extending his left hand and moving around the ring. Barrera sized him up just enough before launching his first combination, sending the audience into a frenzy.
Kennedy promised to be sharp with the jab tonight. He's starting out working it.
From that moment on, Barrera became the aggressor in the round, pushing McKinney against the ropes and landing a solid barrage of punches. It was speculated that Barrera's explosively violent response stemmed from the anger he had bottled up from the press conference incident.
McKinney, who's from Memphis, Tennessee, hoping to cook up some soul stew for them.
Round 2, Kennedy came out more cautious in the second round, allowing Barrera to move with more freedom. A minute in, McKinney felt the pressure as he was briefly pinned against the ropes. After that, he stretched out his left hand, trying to keep Barrera at a safe distance.
Barrera knows it. Follows up with a barrage.
Round 3. During the break, Barrera's corner instructed him to attack the body, and that's exactly what he did. At the center of the ring, the fighters challenged each other's guard with short body combinations. Despite his efforts, Kennedy was unable to hurt Barrera. Round 4. Both fighters seemed to keep up well with the pace of the fight going into the fourth round. A minute in, Barrera initiated a close-range exchange, focusing on attacking McKinney's body. McKinney tried to push Barrera against the ropes, but Barrera wasn't bothered at all. In fact, he was more effective on the counterattack. When it was McKinney who ended up against the ropes, the only thing that saved him was the sound of the bell. Round 5, McKinney's left hand continued to test Barrera's guard, while Barrera used his excellent footwork to move around the ring. The Mexican was a master of counterpunching, capitalizing on every small opportunity to showcase his skills. Even when McKinney pushed him against the ropes, Barrera seemed comfortable fighting with his back to them.
Shots that Roy's been talking about.
Round 6. As soon as the bell rang, the fighters exchanged blows in the center of the ring. Both kept up with the pace of the fight easily, and it wasn't clear who was getting the upper hand. Barrera's body shots put McKinney in a tense situation against the ropes, but his resilience allowed him to escape, barely. Ironically, back in the center of the ring, Barrera dealt far more damage with deadly combinations to both the body and head. Once again, McKinney was saved by the bell after being trapped against the ropes. Round 7, Barrera entered the 7th round, picking up the fight where he had left off in the previous round. He drove McKinney against the ropes, unleashing a brutal barrage of punches to his body and head. Around the 1-minute mark, McKinney began to defend himself but only managed to open his guard, allowing Barrera even more opportunities to land punches. This was the most violent round so far, with heavy and decisive exchanges from both fighters. Round 8. The 8th round started slower than expected. Both fighters seemed to agree to take a step back and keep a safe distance. A minute passed with nothing significant happening, as they both extended their left hands like it was the feeling out process of the first round. However, nearing the 2-minute mark, Barrera was suddenly possessed by a burst of energy and knocked McKinney to the canvas. A right hook started the combination that sent McKinney's nearly lifeless body down.
That's all he should do. He should not press him too much. Hit him once, so he can't get caught back.
Sitting on the canvas, he took the first few numbers of Russell's count, but stood up at 7. When the fight resumed, Barrera pounced on him like a wild beast on its prey. McKinney tried to backpedal but nearly collapsed again, only kept upright by the ropes, which prevented his gloves from touching the ground. In the corner, he was punished like never before. Moments later, McKinney fell to the canvas for the 2nd time. He was back on his feet at the count of 3, but Russell continued until the mandatory 8 count. 23 seconds remained in the round. McKinney tried to run from Barrera, moving along the ropes, but the Mexican closed in. Barrera turned into an executioner, delivering a public beating to McKinney. Surprisingly, McKinney managed to survive until the sound of the bell. Round 9. From the start of the round, Kennedy began retreating. Barrera followed closely without wasting a single punch. Occasionally, McKinney found himself trapped against the ropes where he took punishment, but he spent most of the round moving, trying to avoid the consequences of standing toe-to-toe with Barrera. As the final minute approached, McKinney made a critical mistake and cornered himself, only to be sent to the canvas by a relentless combination. He got up immediately, but Russell counted to 8. When the fight resumed, McKinney engaged in an even more desperate retreat.
It's just combination. Heard him say to Russell, "I'm all right." You heard Russell say, "You gotta show me something."
Round 10. Kennedy had no intention of trading punches with Barrera. His only option was to keep his distance and survive the last 9 minutes of the bout. Barrera adhered to the principle of quality, not quantity, conserving his energy and not wasting punches that wouldn't land. He kept close to McKinney, allowing him to throw a few of his own punches while reaffirming his dominance as the clear aggressor.
One thing that also should be noted here is McKinney sacrifices his head for his body.
Round 11, Kennedy's strategy of surviving until the end seemed to be working. By maintaining distance and throwing punches, only to solidify his stance as the challenger, he was buying himself enough time to finish the fight on his feet. However, a hard right hand from McKinney made Barrera lose his balance, causing him to touch the canvas with his glove. Russell gave Barrera a standing count, and no one was more disappointed than Barrera himself. After the fight resumed, Barrera stumbled again in almost the same spot, putting his glove on the canvas once more. However, since it wasn't caused by a punch, it wasn't ruled a knockdown. This series of events likely fueled Barrera's fire, setting the stage for the dramatic conclusion just around the corner. Round 12, Kennedy went to his corner at the end of the previous round with his arms raised, feeling victorious due to Barrera's stumbles. But when he came back out, an Aztec warrior was ready to show him why you shouldn't count your chickens before they hatch. As soon as the bell rang, a powerful right hand from Barrera sent Kennedy crashing onto his back. The crowd erupted in euphoria. McKinney beat Russell's count and returned to the fight, attempting to keep his distance by extending his left hand and moving around the ring, but it was too late. With the crowd chanting his name, Barrera went into devil mode, unleashing a fury in the ring. A sadistic combination of punches drove McKinney into the ropes, where he clung on in an attempt to stop Barrera's relentless assault. Almost immediately after the referee separated them, McKinney was on the canvas again. There appeared to be a right-hand blow to the side, but Russell ruled it a slip. Moments later, a devastating left hand from Barrera sent McKinney back to the canvas. Once again, Russell seemed to view it as a slip. Frustrated, Barrera turned up the intensity, transforming the ring into a scene of carnage. He chased McKinney around, determined not to let him be saved by the bell. 2 consecutive right hands sent McKinney crashing clearly to the canvas, and this time there was no confusion. Without even starting the count with McKinney sitting against the ropes, Russell waved off the fight, signaling the end. McKinney's strategy had failed. He hadn't made it to the judge's decision. At 2 minutes and 5 seconds into the 12th round, Marco Antonio Barrera secured a victory over Kennedy McKinney by technical knockout. Once again, Aztec blood demonstrated its supremacy in the sport. Conclusion. This fight served as a prelude to the great matches that would later come in HBO's Boxing After Dark. Following this bout, Barrera was viewed as one of the sport's most promising prospects, while McKinney, at 30, would win another title a year later, but would slowly drift away from the sport afterward. It's true that time puts everything in its place. If you've made it this far, thank you. Remember, the best way to support my content is by leaving a like on the video. Did you think Barrera would win this fight without needing a decision from the judges? Did you see any real chance for Kennedy to steal the victory? I'll see you in the comments.